Now we're going to talk about how to build confidence and further your career in UX. So what we're going to cover in this lesson is, first of all, how to balance user and business needs. Sometimes UX people get criticized for being purists and it's all about the users. So I'll talk about the importance of understanding the business needs as well. Then we're going to talk about selling the benefits of UX approach to your organization. Not every organization is fully on board with a customer-centric approach. So we'll talk about how do we sort of sell this approach. Then number 3, we'll talk about how to engage stakeholders and how do we encourage them to build empathy for your customers. And then lastly, we'll talk about how to stop feeling like an imposter. This is really, really common in the UX industry, especially amongst women, but also, men as well. So Miranda's going to talk a little bit about imposter syndrome as well and how to gain confidence. And once you've done that, you'll be able to advance your career. Let's start by talking about balancing user and business needs. Sometimes there seems to be a bit of a tug of war, which do we go with, the business needs or the user's needs? They shouldn't be conflicting or competing. If you look at someone like Google or even Apple, they become the most successful companies in the world, and they do it by focusing on their customers. So if you go to Google's website and look at their About section and have a look at their number 1 mantra, focus on the user and all else will follow. So Google has obviously become one of the most successful brands and very profitable companies in the world, but they didn't do it at the expense of their customers. So their focus is on the user and everything else follows on from that. So they shouldn't be competing. When we sort of start a project, we really need to understand what is the business trying to achieve? What's the business problem we're trying to solve? Now, they might not necessarily be done by a UX person. You might have a product manager or a project manager or a business analyst who does that, as long as someone does it. But it's also important as UX people that we understand we're not just there for the customers. We also have to help the organization achieve its business objectives as well. So we need to understand that. So when I start a project, I will often interview maybe even the CEO or the executives, as people high up as I get relevant to my project, to really understand what are they trying to achieve. I want to talk now about selling the benefits of UX design to your organization. There are a number of benefits of user-centered design, so why do we bother with this? First of all, it can decrease learning time. So years ago, I had a telecommunications company come to me and said, it takes us 2 months to train our staff to use their CRM system in the contact center. And I'm thinking, wow, a lot of contact center staff only last 6 months in the job because it's, they get abused a lot and poor pay. So I'm thinking you're probably only going to get 4 months productivity out of those staff. So if you can make that system more intuitive and easier to use, you're going to decrease the amount of training required. UX approach can also decrease development time and costs. Yes, a lot of people say, but you have to do all this extra work up front. That's true. Some people say it costs 100 times more to fix a problem after you've done the coding and development than before. So if you can identify those problems early on, you're going to save a lot of time and money that you don't have to go back and rework things. The other thing it can do is reduce the overall cost of servicing customers. If people have a good experience online or in a digital channel, they're much more likely to use those channels than if they want to sort of walk in or phone up. So it can be a lot more cost effective to service people via digital channels or online. It can increase satisfaction and trust. If people have a good experience on your website, they're much more likely to trust you as an organization as well. It can increase retention and sales. Years ago, I went to a big office company in Australia to do my order, and they had a bad experience. I had to register as a business and wait 24 hours before I could place an order. And I'm just like, I'm not waiting 24 hours. So I went to a small business who do office deliveries, and 10 years later, I'm still using the same company. They've got an excellent website and I'm loyal to them because they have a good experience. So retention can be another sort of benefit as well. You might also increase the conversion rate. So the conversion rate could be selling something, or it could be getting them to take the action that you want them to take. If you're a government website, maybe it's completing a form for government assistance. So it could be any kind of action. They're more likely to complete that transaction if they have a good user experience. And the last point is particularly important for safety systems or things like aircraft control towers or things like that. It can increase the efficiency and also reduce error rates as well. So there's a number of really good reasons why we go through this user-centered design approach. We run a digital agency, and here are some of the examples from some of our clients as well. So this was a local government, or what we call a county in the States. So in this case, they actually our client measured the cost. So in-person cost was something like $35 to service a customer. By phone, it was around $20. And then on the web online, it was like $3. So if you can get more people using that digital channel, it's going to be much more cost effective. Here's another example. This was an online application for a personal loan. So we did usability testing to identify some of the issues and barriers. It was like a 9-step application form for a personal loan. And what we did is identify a number of issues, and then they addressed some of those issues. And within 6 weeks, we increased that conversion by 16%. Another example, a contact center. This is for a tolling company. We did a number of focus groups. We did workshops with the contact center client-facing staff. We did usability testing and interviews to identify the user customer needs and also some of the usability issues. This tolling company had 80% of their calls were coming from 20% of their customers, which were mainly casual toll users. And then there was a lot of calls coming in for things like forgotten logins and things like that. So again, what we did is we just tweaked the homepage, made a few little enhancements to identify some of the big issues. And within I think 1 week of launch, they had a 15% decrease in calls to that company contact center. So you can start to do the maths on that and go, okay, hang on, the average cost of a contact center person is this much times X number of employees, and then divide that by the number of calls. You can actually work out and quantify the cost to service those customers. And then you can start to, see the financial return on investment on a user-centered design approach. This was for a government intranet. Again, we tested it, and people could only find content about 47% of the time for the tasks that we gave them. We did a number of workshops with staff. I was doing workshops with firefighters and ambulance officers. We did interviews, we did usability testing. We then went through a design phase. We did lots of card sorting activities and designed a new menu structure or information architecture. And then we tested it, and then we benchmarked that against the testing we did at the start of their current experience. And again, we increased that completion rate for finding things on the new menu structure from 47% up to 82%. So again, you think about staff productivity. So there's lots and lots of benefits, and these are just some of the examples. Now let's talk about how to engage stakeholders and build empathy for your customers. So engagement is a success factor. Years and years ago, I heard a story. I had someone, a visual designer, took I think it was the American Airlines website, and they mocked up a new page for their homepage, and they posted it on a forum and said, I can't believe with all of the resources that American Airlines has, they can't do a better job. I've mocked up this in 2 hours. And then the digital manager for that organization responded and said, yep, I agree. I could mock that up in 2 hours as well. Selling it and implementing it in the organization would take me 12 months. So engagement is a really critical success factor as UX people. If you don't bring your stakeholders on the journey, it's going to make your life really difficult and not very much fun at work, but also you're not going to achieve the best outcome for your customers, because sometimes your stakeholders, they're not trying to be troublemakers, but they're just a little bit too close to it, or they don't really understand that customer perspective. So how do we do this? Again, we cover this in much more detail in our UX course, but some tips that'll help you now just to get you going. First, we want to seek to understand, what is the business trying to achieve? What is your stakeholders trying to achieve? We might invite them to a kickoff meeting. We might go and interview them, do workshops with them. So we really want to understand from our business stakeholders, what are they trying to achieve, and understand that. Then this is really important. We want to get them some exposure to your customers. So we do that any way we can. We might invite your stakeholders to research sessions. Invite them to come along to an interview. You're probably not going to have 6 stakeholders in an interview. You might only have 1. Give them maybe a task of note-taking or something like that. Have a look at involving them in interviews. We might also get them to observe focus groups. If there's an opportunity, maybe you're using a venue that has one-way mirror, and you might be able to let them do that, or you could stream it. Sometimes when we're doing usability testing, it's really powerful for your stakeholders to, sort of see users trying to complete common tasks using the website. And it's a real eye-opener for them. Other little things we can do, this is one of our clients' favorite things. We got this from a Forrester report we read, and it's a concept of postcards from the field. So when we do research, sometimes we might do a big research project and the client or the stakeholder has to wait maybe 4 or 6 weeks until they see that final report. So during that time, they're wondering what's happening, I wonder what they're finding. And they're not really getting much insight into the research as you're doing that research. So what we often do as a digital agency when we do research is we call the postcards from the field. So for that day or that week, we just do a little one-page summary or a little postcard of what are our key insights or themes that came out that week. This is a really great way to keep the stakeholders engaged so they don't lose interest. And they're always sort of hanging out for that sort of final report. But when they get that final report, there shouldn't really be anything much new in that report for them. Other things we can do, sometimes stakeholders just can't come along to sessions. They're too time poor and you just can't get them to come along. So if you can't get them to come along and observe the research sessions, get them to come along to the analysis or the synthesis sessions. So after we go out and we do all that research and we have all this data, we then need to make sense of that data. So this is where the UX sort of collaboration comes in. So we're often collaborating with other researchers, with the product managers or the project managers, and we're going through and we're discussing our findings. So this is a great opportunity for the business stakeholders to hear firsthand from the researchers. So one researcher might say, oh, I saw a person who was like this, they're a bit of a Luddite, not very tech savvy, a bit fearful of this. And then someone else like, yeah, I had 2 or 3 people like that as well. So you might then as a group do some personas up on the whiteboard, or you might do a customer journey mapping session where you bring all that data in. You might have pre-prepared it on post-it notes, you bring it all together and you're sharing those stories. And it's a great way for your stakeholders to hear firsthand some of the things that you've found. So that's a really good technique as well. When we get into the design phase, we often involve stakeholders in things like co-design workshops. So this is a great way to really understand what your stakeholders want. So we do things like sketching, and then we get our stakeholders to put those sort of sheets of paper that they've sketched up on a wall, and then we give them sticky dots. Sometimes we do this in the digital world with remote work now. We might do things like a Miro board, and they'll upload their photo or their screenshot taken from their camera, and we upload all their images to a Miro board and we use dots on the Miro board. So from this, we get lots of their ideas. What do they want? What's important to them? So, and it's also a humbling experience. So when the marketing manager has their full page hero image and no one puts dots on that element, it's a humbling experience, and also helps them understand that they have to balance their business needs with the other business stakeholders in the room. My last one, this is my favorite, test their great ideas. Sometimes they have ideas and you're just like, oh no. Years ago I had a head of a government agency to go, oh, what are those splash pages? And we're just like, oh, no one does splash pages anymore. So if you just said, no, you can't have that, you're not going to be very popular. And then sometimes they might, as a senior, override you and go, well, we're doing it anyway. And then you have to do it. So better than that is go, okay, I'm not sure how that'll work. Generally, we don't do it. No, we want a splash page. Okay. Then you might go and test that idea. So then you do 3 concepts. One of them might be a big splash page with just the image with skip intro button. And then you have customers saying things like, I hate those pages. All I want to do is get straight past them. And then the stakeholder or the manager's sitting there listening to that going, oh, okay. So it's a really good way to change their thinking. It's also really good for menu labels. People go, oh, everyone knows that term. We've had a big advertising campaign. Everyone knows that term. And you're just like, uh-huh. And then you test that, and lo and behold, people go, what does that mean? So it's a real eye-opener for your stakeholders to test their interesting ideas. Lastly, we're going to talk about how do you stop feeling like an imposter. A lot of UX people are very empathetic people. There's a lot more females who get into UX, but males make great UX people as well. But a lot of UX people don't have that confidence and belief in themselves and always worry that someone's going to call them out. Do you have that feeling sometimes? I have that feeling sometimes, even after 20 years. So when I started out in the field of UX, I was working for a large consulting company. I was working on a project for a large telecommunications company. I was working with a team of 40 developers who were working 16-hour days. And I'm looking at the designs. I'm the sole UX person, and I'm going, oh, these aren't very user-friendly. Maybe we should do this, this, and this. And all I was told by the project manager and all the developers was, shut up, Tanya, get back in your box. We're already working 16-hour days. Will you stop making, our life difficulty? And I felt this big. I had no confidence. I was also being charged out at $325 an hour, and I knew nothing. And I felt like such an imposter. So what did I do? I read lots of books, I went online, I self-taught myself a lot about UX. I even went back to university, did a 4th degree in human factors. And when I started out in this field, no one even knew what UX meant. When I started my business, I called it UX Consulting, and then 5 days later, I changed the name because no one knew what UX was. Finally, now companies are realizing the importance of user experience, customer experience, and experience design. And according to Forbes, brands that have a superior customer experience bring more than 5 times more revenue than their competitors. But in the last few years, I've really seen a worrying trend. There's lots of cowboys out there, because everyone's jumping on the bandwagon. So you get the cowboys who, say they can do all this stuff, but then on the other flip side, and probably more of these people, you get a lot of people with imposter syndrome, not having that confidence in themselves and belief in themselves. I have a lot of people do our courses and say, oh, I actually knew a lot of this stuff already, but when you, sort of filled in some of those gaps for me and you affirmed that I was actually doing a lot of the right things, it's just given them that confidence. So at Peak XD, we want to empower the imposters. We don't worry about the cowboys. They'll just lose their job in a couple of years' time and then you can take their job. Our mission is to empower others to improve the world through human-centered design. Now, Miranda's going to share with you some tips now on overcoming imposter syndrome.
So first, what is UX imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is that feeling that you're not good enough. It's doubting yourself and your abilities. It's thinking that everyone else is better than you, even if they may not be. It can affect UX designers in a lot of ways. When you're new to UX, it can stop you from applying for a job. It can make you hesitate to go to that job interview or accept a job offer that you've been given. When you're experienced, it can get in the way of you voicing your point of view and can impact your ability to speak up and advocate for users. As a UX designer, you might feel it when you're working with senior stakeholders who are experts in their profession. People like product owners, project managers, directors. You might feel it when you're starting a project and you don't have all the answers yet, or when there's a mountain of data to be analysed and synthesized and you just don't know where to start. The truth is, in every new situation, you're going to feel a little bit out of your comfort zone. And this is when imposter syndrome can rear its head. So imposter syndrome needs strategies in place to overcome. I've had over 15 years experience in design, and I still feel it. It doesn't go away with experience alone. So how do we overcome it? Here are our 8 tips to help UXers overcome imposter syndrome. Step 1. Recognize that it's normal to feel like an imposter in some situations. Accept that it's okay to be feeling this way. Don't beat yourself up. Also, number 2 is accept where you're at. No one became a UX designer overnight. Everyone is at different stages in their career, and it's okay to not know all the answers. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay for you to be learning. Step 3. Look at other people's work and appreciate it. Break down what they did. See what they did well and let it inspire you. Don't let it make you feel inadequate. And if you do feel inadequate, repeat step 2. Remind yourself that it's okay that you're learning. Step 4, be confident in your ability to learn. Give yourself time to learn. Ask questions. Learn the tools. Learn the methods. Learn the theories and principles. And arm yourself with knowledge. Being confident in your ability to learn and arming yourself with that knowledge will really give you that confidence. Step 5 is to find a UX coach or mentor. Find someone that can give you that one-on-one feedback and support. Step 6, try to get experience in a supportive environment. Find a course or a work environment that provides constructive feedback on your work. Step 7 is trust the UX method and trust your data. It gets easier over time. Tell the user's story. Make it less about you and more about them. Because after all, as a UX designer, you should be an advocate for the user. And finally, step 8, confidence, practice, and preparation. Being confident isn't something that happens overnight. It takes preparation, it takes practice, it takes rehearsing over and over again. You need to own your strengths and your wins As you grow in your expertise and experience, the more you'll be able to overcome the burden of imposter syndrome. So just as a recap, what you've learned in this lesson, we covered how to balance the user and business needs, how to sell the benefits of a UX approach in your organization, how to engage stakeholders and build empathy for your customers, how to stop feeling like an imposter, how to gain confidence and advance your UX career.
Thanks, Ramona, for that. Where to now? So hopefully we've given you a lot to think about and helped provide some clarity around careers in UX. At PeakXD, we have a range of UX courses available for those who want to just dip their toe in, or for those who are really serious about sidestepping into a UX career, or maybe those who are already working in UX and really want to fill in the gaps and gain more confidence.